Hello, my name is Christopher, and I'm going to be reflecting on the documentary that we saw, Frontline Separated Children at the Border. As for the psychological and emotional impact of family separation on children, a lot of these children that were separated, they will have problems within, coping skills, right? So a lot of these kids, remember, they're developing. They're not, the brain doesn't finish developing until like 25. These are kids that are probably as young as 2 years old. Some were even babies, right? It's important to have that secure attachment with the parent, the child, and the parent. That way, later on in life, they can build long-lasting relationships with others, have trust in them, right? Have a good use of coping skills. When you disrupt that type of attachment, that can lead to increase in anxiety, increase in depression, a lot of distress. Many of them might have feelings of unworthiness, low self-esteem, have social withdrawal from others. And some of the interviewees, as Maybelline and Jocelyn, they ended up reuniting with their parents, and there was a shift in their personality. They were at first sweet, maybe shy, joyful, and now they're a little bit more aggressive, a little bit, they're angry at their parents for what occurred. Why did you leave me here? All that I've been through, right? They're fearful that it might happen again. So those would be the impacts psychologically and emotionally. For the zero tolerance policy, how that affect families seeking asylum? Well, it separated kids at the border, right? You separate them from their parents while they're being processed, So the families that are already going to the United States, fleeing their country, they're fleeing for different reasons. Some of it can be, factors can be violence, gang violence, MS-13, 18th Street, very present in El Salvador. Other countries like Guatemala, other Central American countries, Mexico as well, has problems with narcotraficantes or the narcos, right? Drug kingpins, right? A lot of killings. So some of these people are escaping violence to seek a better life. And that is an obstacle within itself, because they're doing this journey without the guarantee that they might, seek residence there. So it's a shot in the dark. And not only that, but now they have to worry about another obstacle, is being separated from their child. The parent might not know how the child is being looked after, if they're being given enough food, they're being clothed, if there's good social interactions. They might have concerns with, who's taking care of them, who's looking after them. There's the possibility of abuse, there's a possibility of sexual abuse, possibility of bullying from other children. A lot of different factors can go wrong, right? A lot of different factors can be seen. What role can social workers do in supporting these separated families? Well, they can provide client-based therapy to a lot of these families, children and parents. Help them develop some coping skills, help them talk about what problems they're experiencing, right? Their feelings, acknowledging them, because sometimes they feel like nobody cares for them. So you have to make sure that you care for them, right? You have to empower them, right? Know that they're not alone in this. There's many other people going through it, and you're trying to help them as best they can. That would be the counseling part. You can also, for a social worker, you can also get the community involved, reach out to churches, shelters, reach out to food banks, help provide a place of worship, the church, have them provide, food, the housing, right? Those are some ways you can get the community involved. As for the macro aspect, right? Get the government involved. Push for policies that can help or be in support of speeding up the process for residents in the United States, right? be against any policies that might discriminate them, marginalize them, right? So for these detention stories, how does this shape the public views on immigration? Well, it provides insight into what's actually affecting these immigrants. We only see a small portion of what goes on in the media, but we don't actually know how these people feel, right? Because it's not affecting us. It's affecting them directly. So we have to know, we have to acknowledge, we have to understand their viewpoints. Sometimes you viewing it from an outside point of view, you don't get the full picture. You need to view it from an inside point of view, right? Which is why these interviews, this qualitative evidence, right? One thing is knowing things through numbers, which is quantitative, statistics. But statistics can only do so much. You don't get the emotional aspect out of it, right? You don't get the psychological aspect out of it. It's not just important to look at things black and white. You need to also ask these people how they're doing. You need to know all these different aspects. Lastly, what are the ethical issues surrounding immigration on law enforcement? For children. Well, a lot of these kids, they weren't being told the truth in why they were being separated. Some were given the false pretense that, there wasn't enough room in the vehicles that they were being transported in, that they were going to see the parents later on, and that wasn't the case. Some of these kids, they didn't see their parents for like maybe 30 days, 40 days, right? So telling these kids that they're going to see their parents the next day and they end up not seeing them can be it can cause a lot of trauma, right? Cause a lot of anxiety. So a lot of these kids, some of them, they're already scared of being alone, and you're already making that an even bigger issue, right? Some of these kids were babies, right? And there was advocacy groups, or there were interviewers, and they were asking them to see like who's taking care of these kids. And a lot of these kids, they weren't able to be identified. They weren't able to identify the parents and all that. So therefore, who's in charge of, providing them with the process of uniting these parents again with the kids? That's the most important thing. So you already separate the kids and you separate the parents, but when it comes down to, the parents have already been processed and all that, how do you get them back together if you can't even identify them? That's the ethical thing, and that's the very scary thing from this zero tolerance policy.